studio supervisor for those.
Yes, and in addition, obviously there was other things. Let me now jump ahead. After studio supervisor, the next in line for me was the supervisor of scenery, props, and electric, and special effects. That was, again, for all of the studios. I was responsible for all of the shows. All of the shows every week had to purchase what they call outside props, things that they didn't own. Like the soaps had to rent, $20,000 a week, in furniture that they didn't own, or they'd have to buy food, or they'd have to buy flowers. Well, that was an outside prop man who had to bring that in. Then, of course, there was special electric. Each studio came with a complement of electric. In other words, let me just give you a number. Let's call it TV1. And TV1 had a certain amount of lamps. Well, if you need special things in order to supplement those lamps, we had an electric shop that not only had to maintain those lamps, but they had to supply those lamps to the studio in addition to what they had. So we did that. We did special effects. It was really, really a big job, and I got a lot more involved in the productions because I would have to, at that point, I had to go to production meetings. They had these production meetings every week. And I would go with the prop men. And I would go to, let's say, the One Life to Live meeting on Wednesdays. And the directors would speak 2 weeks in advance of what they were going to need. Oh, on this day, we're going to need, we're going to put, Bo in quicksand. So we're going to need all kinds of, and the prop man would say, okay, I got it. And he'd come back to me and say, you got to make out the budget for this week. And, we got to include loads of oatmeal because we're going to have to do quicksand. So I would go to what became my next position. Okay. Yeah, there was a lot. I would go to ultimately, which was a production coordinator. Now, the production coordinator is like the senior most production services official that goes to the show and says, okay, I need this amount of money to operate, whether it's quarterly, weekly, if we're doing if we're doing what they call a remote, this is what I need. This is the manpower I need. Production coordinator is somebody that is responsible for a given production from logistical planning up to, including and through post-production, estimating, done from the beginning to the end. So on a soap, for instance, you'd have a weekly budget, and you'd have to reconcile that budget every week. How many stagehand hours did you spend? How much time did it take you to truck these sets to and from the studio? Wow. How much warehousing? How many square feet of warehousing do we have on this show? I would go also to the producers and say, hey, you haven't used this set in a long time. And if instead of spending $36,000 a week, if we can get rid of this set, if you can give me what they call a dump order on this set, I can take it and saw it up. And, instead of spending $36,000 a week, maybe I can get you down to 30 because I can dump things. So it was a very, very big job.
Is this the progression you wanted? Did you have like a vision of like, okay, I want to eventually be doing something else? Is this where you envisioned?
This is exactly what I envisioned. I mean, I thought, being a production coordinator when I first came, and I saw these guys who were production coordinators, I thought, I want to be like these guys because these guys they're really involved. I mean, they're really, really in the know. Although they didn't have to spend all of their time in the studio, they did have to spend a lot of time there. They didn't have to spend hour for hour because it was more normal then where you could work, 10 to 6 or 9 to 5. Or listen, sometimes we all worked late. But yes, that was the natural progression that I wanted to take. But I wanted to do bigger things. And the only way that you could do bigger things is you had to be good. And you have to be a people person. You have to have the gift of gab, and people have to like you. You have to know what you're talking about. That's what got me to doing things like the elections with Frank Reynolds. This is. I think I'm going to say it was after, Harry Reasoner and Barbara. When Barbara Walters first came, they were like a snake and a mongoose. I mean, they didn't get along at all. But this got me to doing bigger things, and I wanted to do those big things because I wanted to be counted on. And I will tell you this, the biggest thing that I ever did in my life, and I'm going to, listen, winning Emmys as a stage manager is great. I mean, we can get into that. I mean, I got 3 Emmys and I got, 13 Directors Guild Awards, so I don't want to honk my own horn, but if I want to, I can. I wanted to do those big things. And, the thing I ultimately wanted to do, because I've always loved sports my entire life, is I wanted to do the Olympics, because ABC was the network of the Olympics. And, we had the production coordinator who I, loved the most, was a guy by the name of Jim Flood. And Jim Flood was in Munich, in 72, where, the Israeli, team was slaughtered. Wow. Anyway, I wanted to do that, and fortunately, I got my wish in 1982. I got my wish to be assigned to the Winter Games in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, in 1984, and that's. When you want me to start telling stories about that, I'm ready for you.
Well, now's a good time. So, Sarajevo.
Okay. Yes.
What exactly did you do as part of the crew with the Olympics?
Okay. Everything that I did as a production coordinator on the other shows, in other words, everything that was not engineering, which encompassed, engineering is obviously, lighting, the instruments, engineer, cameras, booms, sound equipment, videotape. That wasn't me. What was me was the set design, props, lighting, logistical planning in terms of everybody who went to the Olympics for ABC was always outfitted. They were clothed. So my department, we had to clothe. We were going to clothe 1,500 people. Food, that became our responsibility. We were going to have to feed and cater 1,500 to 2,000 people. Shipping, getting things, procuring things. When you're in a country that Yugoslavia was made up at that time of 7 republics, and at the time when the story of the Olympics is, the Olympics are always, the countries that want to get the Olympics always have to form what they call an organizing committee. And the organizing committee for, let's say it was Poland or Rome, or the cities that want to get these Olympics, they go before the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne, Switzerland. And they say, blah, 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 we want to do the whole big presentation. But in a nutshell, they go to the International Committee and say, this is what we can do. Now, at that time, Marshal Tito was alive. And Marshal Tito wanted to unify the 7 republics of Yugoslavia. That was like a big thing with him. He wanted to unify the country. And he felt, if we can get the Olympics, that'll help people, become cohesive, and we'll all work together, and, right. However they do. Making a long story short, Sarajevo was granted the Olympic. I don't know when. They could have been granted the Olympics in like 1980 79 or 80.
Right.
Because whenever they closed the previous Olympics, the head of the Olympic Committee, this guy Juan Antonio Samrat, would say, until 1984 in Sarajevo. They always knew.
Mm-hmm.
They always know where it's going to be years in advance, because that gives those cities the chance to build whatever facilities they need. Like right now, they were going crazy in Tokyo, right? Because they didn't know if they were going to have Olympics. Yeah. But what about all these facilities that were built? Right now, they're laying dormant. And if this happens again next year, and there is no Olympics, they will have spent all that money for nothing. And that's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were granted. So,
how early then? The Winter Olympics are happening. How early are you starting to send stuff over before the games actually begin?
Well, let me say this: right after Lake Placid ended. Okay, not myself, because there was somebody above me. There was a director of production services above me. You remember the man I told you that I first interviewed with, a man by the name of Deet Jonker? He was the director of production services for that Olympics. And because he was like a mentor of me, he said, I want to take somebody that I know, that I can trust, and it's going to work for me. So he took me. Now, right after Lake Placid, ABC established, they opened an office complex in Sarajevo, because they were going to have 4 years to work out all of these things and get these things together. So I was not involved until 1982, but he was involved in 1980, right? I mean, from the get-go. He didn't live there, but he went there many times for, survey trips and things, because, to give you I know it's going to sound long-winded, but whenever there's an Olympic Games and things like that, well, there's all kinds of different broadcasters. There's an American broadcaster and a Spanish broadcaster, and these things have to be worked out with the Olympic Committee. People don't just go and say, well, okay, I want to set up an announce position here. Each committee at each different venue will say, thinking about an empty mountain with grass on it. Say, well, and it's hard to picture. This is where we want to have, like, the major announce positions for all of you broadcasters. You need to figure out how you're going to televise this, and you have to, when I say there's a certain amount of negotiation involved, people far and above us would negotiate with the organizing, let me call it the Sarajevo Organizing Committee, and say, okay, listen, we are the American broadcaster, and we want to cover the men's downhill race from top to bottom. So you need to come with us, and we need to come with you, so that you can tell us where we are going to be allowed to put camera positions on this mountain. Because camera positions, that relates to, not only do they have to be built, but nothing at that time was wireless. The mountains had to be like wired. The cables had to be. It's a huge, huge undertaking.
It'd have to be able to withstand snow and ice. Whoa.
It's incredible. And so, then ABC, on the other hand, had to obtain the equipment to they had to buy, ski, what do they call them? Ski cats, not ski, your big mountain ski things, I forget what they call them, because it was so long ago. But they had to obtain this equipment, rent this equipment from other lands that in major snow with these tractors that could go up the mountain. But prior to that, in the winter, in the summers, they had to run cables to these, build things. It was I gotta say, for me, logistically, it was. I'm the most proud of that, because I sent 9 40-foot tractor trailers from the United States to Yugoslavia to Sarajevo, that went from Port Newark to Amsterdam, And